Andre Faul Jr. thought that his family had it figured out. They have 3 generations living on their 100-acre farm in northern Kentucky, and they use a lot of creativity to make their operations financially sustainable. And then something they did not expect. Hi, I'm Dave Price, and this is the American Farmland Owner Podcast. The Fauls don't just rely on 1 or 2 specialties at Fauls Family Riverside Farm. You want pasture-raised chicken or turkey or grass-fed beef or lamb? They do those things. How about eggs? How about saltwater shrimp? They can do those too. And if you want to get married in their 1880s rustic barn, or if you want the full farm-to-table dinner experience, they can do that too. Now, part of their diverse operation included providing meat for a local school district. That was until the USDA sent a letter saying the check would not be in the mail. Andre will take us through how his family is trying to overcome this, thanks to some more creativity and also thanks to some of their customers. But first, we're going to work our way to that challenge by learning more about their commitment to doing a lot of things well. Let's talk a little bit about your farm. Your family has put together a really diverse operation, and why did you go that way?
We figured that having a diverse farm operation would be the most viable option as a small farming operation. That way, we're not solely dependent on just one crop, one product. We can diversify our income stream, and if one product doesn't perform well, we can look into why that is, and we can cut it or add a different product. But so that for that reason, and then also to be able to provide some variety to our customer base in what we offer. Being a livestock farm and not selling any produce, we can only offer so many products, but if we offer different meat products and some unique meat products, we can draw more customers in, even though they may not order everything that we offer, but they can choose a good variety of what suits their needs. And then, all that combined with the wedding and event venue, that is a separate business. Essentially, my wife sort of operates that side of the business. Her and I also do the farming stuff together, but she manages the event venue and the bookings and stuff. So that is a completely sort of different scope of things. You got to focus on different business idea, but it works great for helping with cash flow throughout the year. And then we also use the space to host farm tours and farm dinners where we feature our own products. We get some guest chefs in to come in. Then I offer a farm tour, on a hay wagon. So it's a really nice evening for folks, and they really enjoy it. Just having all those options available to us really is critical to making this farming thing a successful enterprise. Because, as you well know, the margins in farming are so tight. And, you just got to do everything you can to stay afloat. So,
man, listening to you and your wife, and then but all the stuff you're doing, it just makes me. Some buddies of mine and I were making fun of some of these shows on TV. Like some show like Farmer Finds a Wife and all this stuff, and it's all all these reality shows and stuff. But when I'm listening to you talking as a guy who's married, I'm thinking I want to see a show on. How does a couple who operates all of this business, works all the time, how do you do it? That should be the show, the key to a marriage.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I mean, it doesn't come, or it comes with a lot of its own challenges.
Yeah.
Managing, the hardest thing is managing sort of work farm time with personal family time. Because you have to be you can get stuck, and I have been in that situation where I've gotten stuck in just the farm mindset, and just everything revolves around the farm, and I have this huge list of things I have to do, and I lose focus of what is also important, with family and being at home and all the tasks I have to do at home and family time. And so, yeah, it is important to have that work life, personal life balance. And it's a continual thing that I work on. And my wife does a real good job in keeping me in line and pulling me back when she sees that I'm a little bit too focused on the farm side of things. And so we make a good team, and I think we work together really well. And
That's awesome.
so yeah, I mean, but that's not to say we don't have our days where we're where it's difficult and
Yeah. Hey, will you talk about when we were talking about the diversity here? So you have shrimp on the farm as well. Will you talk a little bit about the history of that and what that was like when you go off to school, you come back, and you explain to your family, "Hey, I think shrimp needs to be part of what we're doing here." How'd that go down?
yeah. So a little bit of history on the shrimp operation. We started it in 2018. I just set up a 2 tank system in one of our hay barns. I took all the hay out of there and some of the equipment and stuff, and set up 2 tanks, and produced about 400 pounds or so of shrimp that summer. The shrimp are very dependent on warm water temperatures. So at that point, I didn't have an insulated building, so I could only produce during the summer months.
Mm.
But all that started with I got in touch with Kentucky State University. They had been doing some research on marine shrimp aquaculture, and essentially giving farmers, especially farmers who suffered from the tobacco settlement that happened here in Kentucky, and the funding became available through the Kentucky tobacco settlement money to do something different. And some of that money was given to these land grant universities, Kentucky State being one of them. And so they had grant opportunities to apply for grants to purchase equipment to do something unique. And one of those options was aquaculture. And so I applied for the grant, and I was able to get some funding to get my initial equipment purchased through Kentucky State. And they provided, helpful resources. Some of the students there were able to help me with some of the system setup and initial design of the system. And so, yeah, I just sort of took all that information to my folks before we started and said, hey, I've got this idea to raise some shrimp. There's one other guy in Kentucky currently doing it, and I feel like this would be a very unique thing to do. And they were all for it. They knew that I had the background in raising marine fish. I had raised, mahi and grouper and snapper down there in Miami. And so, those are some really difficult fish to work with. And we were able to raise them from an egg up to a full adult fish. And so, raising shrimp seemed to be a little bit easier than that from what I had been reading and studying on. So yeah, we just kind of jumped into it. I raised that 400 pounds of shrimp in the hay barn and took it to chefs and restaurants. And yeah, the chefs loved it because they could get a fresh product, fresh shrimp product the same day or even the next day. Because they're used to getting frozen product, shipped in. And so yeah, it was a hit there. It was a hit at the farmers market. I did some cooking samples there and sold about a pound over there, and that worked out great. And so I want to say it was 2019 into 2020, we decided to put up a more permanent building for the shrimp. And we purchased one of those metal Quonset hut buildings. You can buy them for fairly cheap for a big building. You just have to put it together yourself is the only caveat there. So myself and another guy, we I mean, they send you a big book of blueprints and stuff you got to follow.
Okay.
And so we read through the book and did it all, based on the instructions there, and put the thing together in like 6 months.
Was that a beast?
Sorry?
Was that a beast to put together? I know you said you had the blueprints and a buddy, but that seems like a lot.
Yeah, it was quite a job. I mean, we had to dig the footers,
Yeah.
or dig down 2 foot deep and about a foot wide for the concrete footers all the way around, and put forms in. And then we had our neighbor does concrete, and so he was able to bring the concrete trucks in, and we did the concrete. And then after that, we started building the arches just one by one. We started by putting the arch together on the ground and then lifting it up with the tractor and then attaching it to the base plate. But then we figured out it's easier to actually just once you have the first one up, we just put the individual sections together, starting from the bottom and going up to the top. And we used the bucket of the tractor to lift us up and work
Nice.
up there and come down. So, definitely not like, not OSHA.
If there's no video, there's no record of anything. Love it.
It took us a little bit longer, but we got it out and we got it insulated. And my dad is an electrical engineer, so he was able to run the electric to the building and put the breaker box in there, and we'll do all the wiring in there, which is very, very helpful. And then we started production in that building mid 2020, and been doing it in there ever since. We have a group in there right now that we just brought in like 2 weeks ago, and they'll be ready about June for their for market, and then we'll probably do another two batches throughout this year. We usually try to shut down the system in January and February when it's really cold.
Okay.
The cost to keep it warm is just too much, doesn't justify
Sure.
the sales during January, February. So kind of use that time to fix things and clean things in there.
How do you coordinate? You mentioned what your wife does with weddings and events, and then you also talked about the family dinners, the farm dinners, and all that, and the tours and all of that. How is that all coordinated? That seems like that's a lot going on.
Yeah, I mean, we have a separate calendar set up where we post all these weddings that we book. So everyone on the farm, it's me, my wife, and then my mom and dad and sister and brother-in-law sort of all live on this property. Our house is on a separate lot, but my sister and her husband and 2 kids and my parents live right there on the farm itself. And so when we book a wedding, we just add it to the calendar, and we all sort of know what the weekends look like. We at the beginning of the year, we set aside dates that we can book that are available for weddings, and we also sit down and talk about when we want to host farm dinners, and we actually set those first, and then we also do a fall festival in October where we host a bunch of vendors here on the farm, and we do a farm tour, and we cook some of our burgers and brats and stuff, and so we set that aside at the beginning of the year. And then any other weekends that are available during normal wedding season years for outdoor weddings anyways, April, May, June, and then September, October. July and August is too hot for folks to do an outdoor wedding. And so we set those, whatever is left, we set those aside. And then we, whatever clients require, my wife gives them a tour, and if they want to book, we get the book.
As I'm listening to you explain all this stuff, I'm thinking your wife must be something else if she's able to figure out the work-life balance with all this, because man, that's a lot.
Yeah, no, I mean, she does a great job managing all this, and she's working on all the marketing for the barn venue and setting all that up, and flying to clients, and that in and of itself is probably a full-time job. And then, she also helps her passion is working with livestock and animals on the farm, and so her and I still do all that together. And usually we do all that in the mornings, and then in the afternoons we sort of split off, and she manages the event side of things, and I focus on the logistics and stuff of the farm. So I think we've figured out a good system that works. At this point, I'm sure they're going to throw a curveball at us.
Always. All right. Hey, speaking of curveballs, so we're seeing this whole kind of reinvention of government, USDA and everything else. And you talked about how instrumental a grant you received from Kentucky State, right? When you were looking at these shrimp operations. So you see the value of this and how this can really help somebody get going. So one of the things that was very important to your family was to provide local meat for the schools in the area, right? Schools and restaurants. So what all went sideways with all of that, and how did you all get through that?
Yeah, so we started with it's called the Local Food Purchasing Assistance Program. It was instituted in 2022, and it provided funding through the USDA to local school districts that they could use to purchase food from local farms. They had been purchasing for a long time. Schools have been purchasing food from the big food suppliers, and GFS, Cisco.
Mm-hmm.
They have a certain pricing structure, and the schools can afford that. But for them to be able to take that next step to purchasing local food from farmers, our cost of production is a lot higher than those larger companies, and we have to charge a bit more for our product. And I believe it's a better product that we raise. But all that to say, this funding became available, and schools could opt into the program and use the funding to purchase food from local farms. So we inquired about this program, and we got in touch with one of the county just south of us, Oldham County. They applied to get access to the money, and we got in touch with their director of nutrition, and we started a working relationship with them in 2022, delivering specifically our pasture-raised chicken, but also some of our pork sausage, pork bratwurst, and then some ground beef as well. And so, 2022 was a great working relationship. 2023 was very successful. Last year, we did about the same that we did in 2023 with them. And then beginning of this year, I met with the director of nutrition in February, and we were talking about the plans for this year, and she said they had just met with everybody involved in the program, and they were told that the funding would be available for this year, so we can all start planning for, meeting with farmers and discussing production and all that. And so we made plans for, 5 deliveries throughout this year, primarily of our chicken. And so I booked processing dates, I booked, chick ordering dates, got everything in line, he ordered, and then beginning of March, we get a letter from the USDA saying that funding has been cut for the program. No real reason given other than it didn't align with the current administration's priorities, and the funding would no longer be available. And so I reached out to the director of nutrition in Oldham County, and she just heard about it too. She's trying to figure out what to do because she had other farmers who had already planted some crops in their fields to provide food for the schools this year. So after that, we just kind of sat down, and my wife and I started brainstorming on ideas of what to do and how to continue to provide food to the schools, even with this funding being cut. So we decided for our first delivery, which was scheduled at the end of this month, we were going to do a fundraiser, send out an email to our customer base, and ask them if they'd be willing to donate some money to cover our production costs for the chicken we were supposed to deliver. And we would just donate the product to the school once we meet our production costs. So we're not making any any money off the deal, but we're covering our production costs, and then we can still provide the chicken to the schools. And yeah, we were very pleasantly surprised. Within 2 weeks, we met that goal, and so we're scheduled to still drop off the first delivery at the end of this month, and then our focus will now be on our second delivery and trying to brainstorm ideas on how to fundraise to still be able to provide that product to the school system, because it's been such a beneficial program for both us as a small farm and for the schools. They're able to provide these nutrient dense meals to the kids for lunch. Back when I was in school, I brought my own lunch to school because I never really wanted to eat
the school lunch.
Yeah, so for them to be able to offer pasture-raised chicken and local vegetables on their menu for kids is a great initiative, and I still don't quite understand the reasoning behind the funding cut, and I'm hoping that with more people talking about it and talking about the effects that it had and the beneficial aspects of it, that it might be reconsidered. But I'm hopeful, but I'm also realistic. So.
I think that's what the more people who talk about this whole thing, I think at some level people understand the finances of the country, right? The politicians have kind of done this for years. They ran us into debt. We're $37 trillion in debt, and adding almost $2 trillion a year, which is unforgivable, really. But I think as your family is going through here, one of the biggest challenges to this is then when you've essentially been promised something that's going to come, it's one thing to say in 2026 or 27, we're phasing this out or cutting it or changing it or whatever, but to do it after plans are already in place and you already have everything going through, then to pull the rug out, that's so hard to readjust on this. And I appreciate the way you talk. You seem like a pretty measured guy, to kind of think through, here's what I got to do, here's what I got to do. But how did you not lose it when you got that letter?
No, to be honest with you, I in the moment, I did. I was frustrated. I was upset about the whole thing, and I just couldn't understand why, funding that is so beneficial in building up our local food system, this directly benefits local farmers, and we saw that during the pandemic that our industrialized food system they failed us.
Mm-hmm.
They're so efficient, but any little kink in the system just takes the whole thing down. And folks were seeing grocery shelves empty, and then they came to local farms like us, and we sold out of product the first couple of weeks of the lockdown. And so this was a direct initiative to boost local food production and make our food system more resilient. And then combine that with providing healthy food to our kids when we're facing an epidemic of obesity in our kids. It's a program that addresses a lot of things, and for it to just be abruptly cut like that, it's like you said, it's one thing for them to give us notice to say, hey, next year this won't be available again, or we're restructuring it in a different way. And I don't, personally, I don't really care who takes credit for the program or anything like that, as long as the program is meeting the stated goals and it's beneficial to and does a good thing for the community and for the kids. That's the important thing to me. And so I understand the issues we have with our spending issues and the budget, but it's personally I would be more than happy for my tax dollars to go to supporting this sort of initiative, because we're investing in our future and the resilience of our food system and our kids. And I don't know. We'll just take it day by day, and thankfully we didn't build our whole business around this funding. We it was a nice perk to have. It helped with our cash flow throughout the year. It came during times of the year where our expenses were high, so we were able to cash flow things a little bit easier. But, as farmers, we all constantly have to adapt and change to changing environments. And we'll be fine. We'll figure it out. And I'm hoping that in the future it'll be reconsidered, and people will see the benefit that it's had.
I understand what you're saying about awareness, but I think a lot of people aren't willing to do what you're doing right now. And I know you did a newspaper interview as well. Like, it's kind of people, you're all busy. You got to make the time to do this. You got to start talking about how these decisions personally impact your family. Some people just aren't comfortable kind of talking about all that kind of stuff. So how important do you think it is for families like yours who are now caught up in all of this to be willing to share their story? Because realistically, right, it's going to take people outside agriculture to have the awareness and knowledge about what's going on if this is really going to change. Not that I'm diminishing the power of family farmers to kind of get it out, but really it's going to take a lot more people to understand, hey, this is what is at stake, right?
Absolutely. No, I mean, that's why I decided, spoke with my wife about it, and just, I thought it was worth my while to make some time to talk about it. Even though, like I said, my days are already so full. But this is bigger than just our farm and the effects that it has on our farm. This is about, like I said, investing in our future and building more resilient food systems. And I feel like speaking out about that and making time for that is important. And I do hope that other farmers who have been impacted by this will also, be willing to talk about their story and how it's impacted their farm. The more voices we have that can talk about it, and it's important to, at least in my opinion, to keep politics out of it. I feel like that just muddles the story, and people shut off when you start talking about politics. We need to focus on the program and the impact it has on our operation and the whole system, local food system in general, and refrain from trying to play one game. There are reasons these things are happening, but we don't have to get into that. Everybody's got their own opinion on that, but focus on the situation and focusing on solutions. That's where our focus should be. And so, we've had some of our posts on social media. We've had some folks commenting on our posts and bringing politics into it. I just don't think that's helpful at all. Causes people to start fighting with each other over things are on.
Yeah.
So that's what.
Will you talk about on your website you have a place on there and a way on there if people want to help out to continue this. Will you talk a little more about what it's like? So you get this letter, frustrated about what's going on. You and your wife sort of sit down and kind of brainstorm this idea to at least, you're not going to make anything on this, but hopefully you're going to at least cover your costs on this. To have the community kind of jump in and help. I mean, that has to, when it's such a crappy time, that's got to make you feel pretty good and really underscore how valued what you were doing is to the community, right?
Oh, 100%. I mean, it speaks volumes to the trust that people have, that our customer base has in us. We've been transparent about this whole process, and we've told folks we would be transparent about how their money would be used, and this is, how much we need to cover our costs, and to see this inflow of support from folks, is such a great thing to witness, and that's the other reason we started this initiative, is because we felt like the news cycle has been so dominated by negativity, constant negativity. Every day is a negative story about something. And we wanted to provide something positive out of, out of this negativity that we'd experienced. And, to see the community come together like that, and just getting donations from, we got donations all the way from Michigan. People have never purchased from us, saw this and decided to donate. And, just such a great thing to witness, and to see the support from our customers reaching out, sending us messages. And then to reach out to the director of nutrition at Oldham County Schools and to tell her about this. She was so appreciative and so thankful for what we were doing. And, we're not doing it for the accolades or for any of that, but we're just doing it because we think it's important to continue this program, and we'll do whatever we can to continue it, even if it means we don't make a profit on the product. I think making a statement that is important to us is more important. So.
Andre, we appreciate the conversation, and thanks for all that you all are doing.
Thank you, Dave. I appreciate you reaching out to us and willing to share our story, and very nice talking to you as well.
All right, and please keep us up to date if kind of things change in a good way, or if you find another way to keep this going, whether it's community support or whatever it is. It sounds like you all are pretty resourceful to problem solve here.
Yeah, we're trying. Our next goal is to try to reach out to some of the Chamber of Commerces around in our counties and see if we can get some businesses to work with us. So we'll see. I know everybody's scrambling right now, trying to figure out what the next, couple of weeks are going to bring. So I understand that this sort of initiative is not on top of people's minds, but we'll take it day by day, and we'll accept and be grateful for any sort of support we get. So.
Yes, sir. Thank you. All right. We appreciate you. Thank you much.
Sure. Thank you.
You can check out our feature piece about the Faul family in the American Farmland Owner newsletter. It's the place where landowners get their news about the latest opportunities and challenges for farmland owners and investors. You can find it for free at AmericanFarmlandOwner.com. Thanks for joining us here on the podcast. Please like and share to help us grow. And thanks for caring about the future of our farmland.